Tonight, we are looking at a question that keeps leaders and citizens awake at night. What would happen if two of the world's biggest powers, the United States and China, ever came to blows? It's a scenario that feels unthinkable, yet it is something that military planners and strategists consider very seriously. The world has grown smaller, our economies are linked, our futures are connected. This makes the relationship between these two nations incredibly important. Any major disagreement between them sends ripples across the entire globe, affecting everyone from farmers in Iowa to factory workers in Shenzhen. Understanding the stakes is the first step. The reasons for this tension are complex and have been building for years. We see competition in many areas. There is economic competition for markets and resources. There is technological competition for dominance in fields like artificial intelligence and 5G networks. And of course there is military competition, as both nations build up their armed forces in the Pacific. These are not small disagreements. They are fundamental differences in how each country sees its place in the world. History teaches us that when great powers compete so intensely, the risk of miscalculation grows. A single mistake could set off a chain reaction with devastating consequences for us all. This isn't just a topic for generals and politicians. It matters to you. It matters to your family. A conflict would not be contained to a distant battlefield. Its effects would reach into every home. Think about the products you buy, the food you eat, and the gasoline that powers your car. So much of our daily lives depends on a stable global system. The United States and China are the two largest pillars of that system. If one of them decides to knock the other one over, the entire structure could come crashing down. That is why it's so critical to talk about this openly and understand what could happen. Let's be clear, nobody is saying this is going to happen tomorrow. In fact, most experts agree that both sides have very powerful reasons to avoid a direct fight. The potential for mutual destruction is a powerful deterrent. However, ignoring the possibility is not a strategy. We have seen in history, like during the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, how close we can come to the brink. Tensions can rise quickly, accidents can happen. That period was defined by a constant, underlying fear of what could be. Today we find ourselves in a new era of great power competition, and with it comes a new set of anxieties. So how could something so terrible actually begin? It might not start with a fleet of ships appearing off the coast of California. A modern conflict could begin in ways that are far less visible, but just as damaging. One of the most likely scenarios involves cyberspace. Imagine a massive cyber attack targeting critical United States infrastructure. This could mean shutting down the power grid in major cities. It could mean crippling the banking system, making it impossible for people to access their money. It could even disrupt air traffic control or our communication networks. An attack like this would cause immediate chaos and fear across the country. Another path to conflict is economic. China holds a vast amount of United States debt. A decision to suddenly sell off those holdings could trigger a financial crisis. Or it could cut off the supply of essential goods that American industries rely on, from life-saving medicines to the rare earth minerals needed for our electronics. These are not acts of war in the traditional sense, but they would be seen as deeply hostile. They would inflict severe pain on the American economy and its people. The United States would be forced to respond, and the situation could quickly spiral out of control as each side retaliates with its own economic weapons. Then, there is the more traditional military scenario. Many analysts point to Taiwan as the most dangerous flashpoint. China views the island as a breakaway province and has vowed to unify it with the mainland by force if necessary. The United States has a long-standing policy of ambiguity, but provides Taiwan with the means to defend itself. If China were to launch an invasion of Taiwan, the United States would face a monumental decision. Intervening to defend Taiwan would mean direct military conflict with China. Not intervening would have profound implications for American credibility and the balance of power in Asia. It is also possible that a conflict could start by accident. A United States Navy ship and a Chinese warship could collide in the disputed waters of the South China Sea. A fighter jet from one side could accidentally shoot down a plane from the other during a tense patrol. In a high-stakes environment where both militaries are operating in close proximity, the risk of human error or a technical malfunction is always present. An unintentional incident could be misinterpreted as a deliberate act of aggression, leading to a rapid and violent escalation before diplomats have a chance to calm things down. After an initial attack, the first hours and days would be critical. The immediate United States response would depend entirely on the nature of the attack. If it were a major cyber attack, The first priority would be defense and recovery. Teams at the National Security Agency and Cyber Command would work around the clock to identify the source, repair the damage, and shore up defenses. At the same time, the president would convene the National Security Council to weigh the options for retaliation. A proportional cyber counterattack would almost certainly be on the table, targeting China's own critical infrastructure to show that such actions have a price. If the first shot were a military action, say against United States forces in the Pacific, or an ally like Japan or Taiwan, the response would be swift and military in nature. The United States military's Indo-Pacific Command would be placed on its highest alert. Forces across the region, ships, submarines, and aircraft, would be mobilized to counter the threat. The United States would also immediately work to rally its allies. Nations like Japan, South Korea, Australia, and members of NATO would be called upon to condemn the aggression and, potentially, to join a coalition to push back against China. Diplomacy would happen at lightning speed at the United Nations to isolate China on the world stage. China, in turn, would be prepared for the United States response. Its military strategy, often called anti-access/area denial, is designed specifically to make it difficult and costly for the United States military to operate near its coastline. They would likely use their vast arsenal of missiles to target United States ships and air bases in the region. They would also activate their own extensive cyber and space capabilities to try and blind American sensors and disrupt communications. On the home front, the Chinese government would use its powerful state-controlled media to rally its population, portraying the conflict as a defensive struggle against American aggression and imperialism. The terrifying question then becomes, where does it stop? This is the danger of escalation. Each action by one side would provoke a reaction from the other, potentially climbing a ladder of intensity that could lead to unthinkable places. A conventional war in the Pacific would be devastating for both sides. The economic cost would be astronomical, the human loss would be tragic. The greatest fear is that a desperate side, facing defeat in a conventional war, might consider using nuclear weapons. This is the ultimate nightmare scenario, a red line that once crossed would change the world forever and lead to unimaginable destruction. In any conflict between the United States and China, it is ordinary people who would suffer the most. We must never forget the human cost of war. For Americans, the economic shock would be immediate and severe. The supply chains that bring us everything from iPhones to car parts would shatter. Shelves in stores could become empty. Inflation would skyrocket as goods become scarce. Industries that rely on Chinese components or markets would face collapse, leading to mass unemployment. The global financial system, deeply intertwined with both economies, could freeze up, threatening savings and retirements for millions of people. Life as we know it would be fundamentally disrupted. The impact on the Chinese people would be equally, if not more, severe. While their government has tight control, the foundation of its legitimacy in recent decades has been its ability to deliver economic growth and prosperity. A war with the United States, its largest trading partner, would destroy that foundation. Factories would close, jobs would disappear. The social contract between the Chinese Communist Party and its people would be broken, which could lead to significant internal unrest. The human toll on their military would also be immense, as hundreds of thousands of young soldiers would be sent into a brutal high-tech conflict. We have seen this story before. History is filled with examples of great powers stumbling into catastrophic wars. Think of World War I, a conflict that began with a single assassination but spiraled into a global slaughter that killed millions and redrew the map of Europe. Or consider the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, when the United States and the Soviet Union stood eyeball to eyeball, just moments away from a nuclear exchange. In that case, careful communication and a shared desire to step back from the brink saved the world. These moments from the past serve as powerful warnings for us today. They remind us how easily things can go wrong. This is why, in the end, the most important goal must be to prevent such a conflict from ever happening. The focus must be on peace, communication, and diplomacy. It is easy to beat the drums of war. It is much harder, but far more important, to build the bridges of understanding. The leaders of both the United States and China have a profound responsibility not just to their own people, but to the entire world, to manage their differences wisely. The challenges we face, from climate change to pandemics, require cooperation, not conflict. The path to a better future is one where great powers find a way to compete peacefully and work together for the good of all humanity.